Hello and welcome back to RamsTalkPodcast. And it's probably my favourite episode of the year, this. I really enjoy just looking through random teams, random clubs, trying to find different players that Derby can sign. And I know a few people have asked for this. So here we are. So it's the shopping list. Who should Derby County sign this summer? We've all gone out and we've made our picks. To remind you of how this works, we essentially make 3 picks each. So the very first pick is our sort of realistic pick, very realistic pick. Then we pick our prime player. So this is a player that Derby should desperately want to bring in. And then our third one is a gamble. So this could be someone from a different league, someone that people might not have heard of before. So someone we've put a little bit of time into researching and seeing who possibly could influence this Derby team. So joining me today to go all through this, we've firstly got Jamie Page. How you doing, mate?
Yeah, I'm good. This is the episode that we take the most pride and preparation for, isn't it? So I've been doing research all weekend and hopefully I'm not going to get judged too badly for my decisions.
By most preparation, you mean any preparation. So this
That's
is
true. That's true.
this is vastly more than usual. And we've also got Adam Titley. How you doing, Adam?
I'm good, yeah. Looking forward to it. I think it's been a pretty quiet summer so far from Derby County, so hopefully just be able to have a bit of a laugh today and think about who we might sign or would like to see us sign.
Well, that's it. And John Eustace, I'm sure, is watching us right now and getting ready. That's why I've been so quiet. We haven't done this episode yet. Eustace doesn't know who to go for and who Derby should sign. So what we've done, we've broken it down into the positions that we think Derby need to invest in the most. So as we all know, we've got about 1 million defenders, but Derby are lacking a lot in midfield, on the wing and going forward. So I've taken midfielders. I'd like to think I know a little bit about them. Jamie, who is allegedly a striker, has taken strikers. And we've got Adam, as a wide man himself, has taken on the wingers. So very much looking forward to seeing who the guys have got. By the way, we don't know who we've picked as well. So the idea is we're going to pitch each player under each category to each other and try and work out who we think Derby should sign. So I think we'll start with you, Jamie. We'll start with strikers, the very top of the pitch. Would you like to talk us through your first pick, please?
Well, I thought I was going last, so I was hopefully going to see how you guys did before starting. But yeah, I mean, for me, just before I start and talk about strikers, I just wanted to think about what's my ambition for this season. And that's a mid-table finish. I think if we can finish mid-table, I'd be very happy with that. And then I thought about what do I want from a striker, and I just listed a few things. So potentially a different option to Salverson, someone that's proven at this level, ideally. Someone that stayed fit. Obviously, the curse of the injuries last year. That's very important. And then just someone who's a good professional around the club and obviously a goal scorer as well, who scored some goals. So for my... What do you want first, Jake?
Start with realistic. We'll do realistic, then prime, then gamble.
Okay, so my realistic is Emil Rees. I think a few people have obviously said about his availability after leaving Preston. He'll be available on a free. Obviously, everyone will know that he was part of our academy before leaving and then coming back to Preston. He's a good player. I think at this level, he's 6'3", real handful, strong. And if he gets a chance inside the box, he's got a bit of a rocket of a shot. 12 goals last season, but back in 2021-22, he scored 20 goals in a season in the Championship, so that can't be moaned at. Like I said before, most of you will know he was part of the academy, and I think that story would be pretty special to be able to come back to the club that he spent some time at. He obviously didn't get a first-team appearance in that time, and he could potentially be our new number 9.
Yeah, I can't complain at that. And Adam, what do you reckon?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting one. I think ever since he joined Preston, a lot of fans have always sort of toyed with that fairy tale sort of story of coming back to the club he was in the academy at. I remember on Football Manager, I'd always bring him through. So that's a bonus point there. I've used him on Football Manager. But yeah, I think it's an interesting one. He's a player, obviously uses his height well. Seeing some of the goals he scored for Preston. I think there's the potential that he could maybe possibly come back, but definitely be an interesting one because I think it will play into how we use our strengths next season, whether it is out wide or down the middle.
He's definitely a focal point, isn't he? I think that's something Derby really lack, is that focal point. So yeah, gets a thumbs up from me, Jamie. Good start. Good start. It can only go downhill from here.
It can. I mean, so I could have had my prime pick as a realistic and vice versa, but my prime pick is Michael Obafemi. So 24 years old. He's currently at Burnley. He's a Burnley player. He's now been promoted to the Premier League. Don't think that he will be part of the plans for Burnley moving forward. So I imagine he will go out on loan. He has spent some time, obviously, in the Championship on loan. I just feel that if he can find the form that he had when he was at Swansea and when he broke through at Southampton, you remember him scoring some important goals in the Premier League for them, that he could be a real handful. So he's obviously probably searching for an Ireland place as well, a place back in the Irish national team. I think according to a couple of sites that I've seen, he probably will be a Championship player next season in some form. And I just think back to what I saw from Tyrese Dolan. I don't know if one of us is going to talk about Dolan later, but when Eustace obviously left Blackburn, Dolan was saying how he kind of got him back on track and put an arm around him and made him fall in love with football again. And I think that's maybe what Obafemi needs. He needs a good environment where he can really realise his potential. So, yeah, really interesting to see where he ends up. And I'd definitely like to see him in a Derby shirt.
How long has he got left on his contract, Jamie? Do you know?
Well, this is the interesting thing. So I did see on Transfer Market, which can't be trusted on all fronts, but it said that his contract was due to expire. But then in Burnley's retained list, he was just noted as a player returning back from loan. So I think that he'd probably demand a fee. What that fee would be, I'm not too sure. Interesting, though, when Eustace was part of the Irish setup, Obafemi was actually in the squad. So maybe they are aware of each other, know each other. So there's potentially a little link there.
Yeah, there is. It's like Ryan Johnny says in the comments, how much do you reckon our budget is without any investment? I think that'll play a big part, won't it, in signings like that? But if we've got the budget, even if it's on loan, I think he'd be a decent signing. And S. Gills put Andy Vyman to return. Now, we made a bit of a rule to not go for players that were very, very directly linked, like the likes of Andy Vyman, who is very much allegedly joining Derby. We don't know that ourselves yet, but let's hope so. But Adam, what are your thoughts on Obafemi? Is he one you'd like to see through the door?
Was he on loan at Plymouth for the first half of the season just gone, or last season or something? Yeah, I'm not sure. I think, if I'm right in saying, he's struggled to find that form since, and I'm not convinced that. I'm not completely sure whether he's struggled to settle in teams. A player obviously that's gone to Burnley off the back of, I think, Plymouth or Swansea. I don't know. I'm not convinced. He's not a player that I'm a massive fan of from whenever I've heard fans talk about him in terms of when he's left their clubs. So yeah, that's my opinion now. I think obviously he's had that great form with Swansea and, like you mentioned, with Southampton when he broke through, and he's been a part of the Ireland setup. So his quality is there to see. I think he'll be looking for a move or somewhere to go where he can hit that form and have a full season under his belt. Because I think he's probably missed that for maybe 2 years now, if I'd estimate. So I think if he came to us and was able to take that starting number 9 shirt, I think he'd definitely find the back of the net pretty quickly. But yeah, in terms of my personal opinion, I'm not convinced by Obafemi myself, which is probably a bit bold, but
I told you to go downhill, Jamie. I told you it was coming.
It's noted, Adam. You wait until your first selection, and I'll be tearing holes in your recommendations. But no, I understand it, and like I say, I think he could be a realistic. Or there's obviously an element of gamble there as well. But like I say, you just think about that player that burst onto the scene. I think he was the second youngest player to play for Southampton after Luke Shaw, and he was their youngest Premier League goal scorer as well. So look, I know players obviously go downhill, but for me, there's a player there. He's pacey, he's direct, and if he can find that, that goal scoring instinct that he had in previous stages of his career, he could be a real talent at this level, in my opinion.
He offers something we don't have. I think, again, another thing. I mean, we don't really have a lot, do we? I'm not going to lie. We're really lacking in just players in general. But yeah, he offers something different, doesn't he? He's got a bit of pace. He's got a bit of something. But I understand what Adam's saying as well. It could end up being a lot of money to put on a player that's struggled to hit form in the last couple of seasons. Callum Boocock says that he's currently scouting a game at Old Trafford. That Lee Mack that the World 11 have got in their midfield, he looks a talent that we could really bring in. JB, to finish yours off, let's hear your gamble. I'm interested to see what you come up with here.
Well, I've got two. So I'll tell you about the main one, and then I'll tell you about the other one just quickly. So as you're aware, guys, in the group chat, I have been quite critical of players from League One. I'll admit that. I'm not fancying League One players too much. But I decided to have a bit of a chat with Jake Tong, who is a League One expert, good friend Jake Tong. And he was talking to me a little bit about a player for Stockport called Isaac Alafe. 25 years old. He's their current number 9, but he can also play wide right as well. He's big, he's physical, he's quick. He's had some injury issues this year, but still scored 10 league goals. Yeah, that's the look. There's got to be a little bit of doubt in there, but he still scored 10 goals, and he's been a big part of their rise from League Two, and obviously narrowly missing out this year as well. So there's obviously some good things happening there at Stockport, and looking at some of the highlights on YouTube, as we've probably all been doing all day. He does look pretty good. In terms of my non-domestic gamble, I was scouting Japanese players because I think for me, there's Japanese players playing obviously in Europe at the moment, but also in the championships. There's 8 sides in the championship last season that had Japanese players. And I think whenever we came up against a Japanese player, I always looked at whoever was playing. I thought they had a really good game. I think notoriously they're known for their work rate and willingness to run for 90 minutes. So I had a little look at the Japanese national team, and there's a player called Mao Hasoya. I hope I've said his name quite right. He's currently playing for Kashira Reysol in the J League. He's 24 years old. He's previously been linked with Sunderland back in 2023, and then also a host of Belgian clubs as well. He's labelled as the Japanese Mbappe, believe it or not. So, I mean, what's not to love about that? But he presses from the front. He's a fox in the box, quick and strong. I think there's been a misconception over the years that Japanese players lack that physicality. But when I was looking at him, he looks strong. And we've seen this season with some of the Japanese players that are playing in the championship, you know, they definitely can hold their own. And the game has got a bit more technical as well. It's not all about that physicality now. So I think that he will get a move to Europe, and I'd love to see him in a Derby shirt, and I'd love to own a Japanese shirt with his name on the back as well. So, yeah, that's my non-domestic gamble there, Jake.
I like that. Yeah, I'm not sure about Stockport injury, man, but, Japanese Mbappe, you can't really say no to that. What do you reckon, Adam?
I'm a big fan of Isaac Alafe, mainly because on one year in Football Manager, he scored 20 goals for me with Derby from Stockport. So that's how I base my knowledge off. But yeah, when Jamie said, whenever you see the highlights, when you watch him, he always looks exciting and looks a talent. And yeah, for me, I'm a fan of him. Whether he can make that step up to the Championship, but I guess there's that age-old saying of if you can score goals at any level, you can move up the divisions. You know where the back of the net is. So he's a player that I'm familiar with, and I think definitely has the potential to go higher up than Stockport at the moment. So, yeah.
Decent. Well, I like that, Jamie. You've definitely come up with some different options. I thought you were just going to say, someone who's played in the Championship for 15 years and hasn't hit a goal in 5 years or something like that, because he was good in 2014. But there's some good ones there, mate. I like it. I think, what did we get? We got a proper thumbs up, didn't we, for your first pick? And then, Emil Rees. And then your second pick was a bit of an in the middle. Adam, where were you? Where were you on the fence?
I think Jamie had some good picks there, really. Some good selections. I think there's definitely a mix there of players who played the Championship and at lower levels and abroad. So sort of covered all bases.
It's being nice now, Jamie. Have you noticed?
He is, he's worried. He's worried. Well, I had strikers last year for the episode last year, and I did say about Tyrese Campbell that we could have got on a free. And look, he had a really good season for Sheffield United. So, what I normally say kind of comes true. So we'll have to plot the success of Mayo Hoshoya, whether he stays in the J League or does venture over to Europe.
Absolutely right. Adam, do you want to go next for wingers? Do you want me to go next for midfielders? It's up to you.
I can go next if you want.
Go for it. Go
I've got them written down. So my realistic one, I didn't pick this based off the thumbnail. I wrote it before. I'd like to state that. My realistic would be Grady Diangana, obviously on a free, getting released from West Brom. 27 years old, has played, I think, 6 years at West Brom. Was also at West Ham, but never really, I don't think, got that breakthrough at West Ham or sort of managed to bed into the first team in the Premier League. I think whenever I've seen him play against Derby on the highlights, he always looked very skillful and technical, and he did score against Derby this season, just gone with a header at home, I believe. He never hits massive numbers, really. I think last season just gone, he's got 4 goals, 3 assists, and it sort of all falls just under that 10-goal mark and a couple of assists. But whenever you watch him, for me, I've always been a big admirer of how he plays, and I think on a free transfer, probably could be quite a realistic one that we're going to be linked with. I think I did see a news report that it was estimated he did have quite a high wage for what Derby are at the moment. And like Jamie said, if we're looking at that mid-table finish, then the wage that would be paying is probably a bit of a premium. But on a free, I guess you're missing out on having to pay that transfer fee. So he would be at the moment my realistic signing.
I'm 100% on board. That's why I put him in the thumbnail. I think he's one of those players where I think he was at West Ham and he'd just broken into the first team and he was playing well. And I can't remember if it's his agent forced to move or whether he forced to move or something along those lines to West Brom, who were offering big money and first team football consistently. And he went there and he never quite hit the heights that were expected. But look, he's quick, he's pacey, he's direct, he gets balls into the box. I mean, his assist for West Brom's goal against us at the Hawthorns towards the end of the season, he was playing holding midfield for some unknown reason, but he picked a killer ball out for their goal. And it's that sort of quality that I think we miss a little bit. I think we had it a bit with Harrison Armstrong last season, but we didn't have the players that had the ability to be one step ahead of the players around them. We had a lot of players that worked really hard to try and get as much as they could, but we didn't have that quality. So yeah, Adam, I'm totally on board. What do you think, Jamie?
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, I can see why he's in the thumbnail and I can see why Adam's mentioned him for a realistic pick. I think we need quality in wide areas. I think we really struggled in those positions this year. And if we are starting Salverson, if Salverson is back and he's fit, he will need players getting beyond fullbacks and pulling it back and giving him good opportunities to score. And I think Diangana's that kind of player. He's experienced in the Championship. And if we are looking for that mid-table finish, you need to rely on people that know this level. So, yeah, I think it's a really good shout.
Absolutely. Just a quick one, JB. Adam Lilly said that Jin Woo Jeon, who plays for Jeonbuk in Korea, is apparently a good striker. There you go. You got some Asian competition there.
Yeah, I'll have a look. I'll have a look after this, Adam.
Get the highlights. Get the
you.
highlights up. Yeah. And hello to Scott in Florida as well. Adam, go for it. Who's your prime pick? Who are you picking?
My prime pick. I wish. I've not put him in this one this year. But if he does come available, then he's my prime pick, along with Johnny Russell from the US. But my prime pick would be Peterborough United's, I think, right winger / midfielder, Kwame Poku. I think a player that's a lot of clubs will be chasing after in the Championship this transfer window. Peterborough United known for selling while players are in good form for a high fee. So that's why he's my prime pick. I think he's a little bit unrealistic in the fact I think he'd cost quite a lot and we probably wouldn't be willing to pay that sort of money. But he's 23 years old. Last season, he played 27 matches, I believe, in the league, maybe a couple more in the Cup. And I think in League and Cup, he got 12 goals and 10 assists, maybe 8. I think 8 in the league, 2 more in the Cup, which is great stats for a player out wide and in a Peterborough team, which didn't hit the heights that they would have wanted to. I think last season as well, a player who's done, I think this is the second season he's hit double figures for goals as well, which being a winger as well, you don't usually stay at the same team for very long when you've done that. 2 seasons in a row for them. Obviously, I think he come through with Colchester United, I believe, and then got the move to Peterborough United. He's technical. On the highlights, it looks like he likes to drift centrally as well and knows where the back of the net is. Like I say, he's my prime pick because I think he'd come straight into the team and hit the ground running. And I think he's a player who, if we did sign him, he wouldn't be sticking around with us for maybe more than 2-3 seasons before he gets a move on to bigger and better things. So, yeah, I think he's sort of hitting them prime years, 23 to 27 now. And yeah, I think he's a player that's going to be highly sought after either in this transfer window or the one in January that comes up. But he's my prime pick just because I think he'd be quality and hit the ground running straight away, but probably not realistic because he'd cost a couple of million, I think, which Derby County probably wouldn't pay.
Or will he? Because I've just had a look and he's out of contract.
Oh, is he? I didn't know if he was one of the players who was leaving on a free. I think it's Cipriano as well, who's highly rated at the back. But yeah, I'm sure he's going to have lots of competition from England and abroad to sign him. Like I said, it's probably going to be very difficult for any one club to land him.
Yeah, he's been good for a few years now, hasn't he? I remember I did a bit for the programme for Peterborough when we played them last year, and he was the player that I picked out after watching him a couple of times because he again, really quick, really direct, great feet, scores goals, sets goals up. He's everything you want in a winger, isn't he? Again, he had a big injury last season, which is disappointing for him. I guess he was having a really good season at Peterborough, despite the fact that they were struggling a little bit. So I think that's important context that Peterborough were terrible last season and he was still putting those numbers up. So yeah, really impressive for me. And out of contract, if we can get him on a free and bring in players of that sort of quality, I'm sure Derby's a big project that he'd be considering. But yeah, as you say, I'm sure a lot of teams are going to be offering the same sort of thing. I think Jay Jones has just left, hasn't he? He's gone to St. Pauli in the Bundesliga. So that's the sort of teams that will be fighting against teams in potentially much better positions, I guess, than us. Jamie, what do you reckon?
Yeah, another good shout. And if he is on a free, then yeah, I think we should be in the line for him. Whether we're at the front, who knows? But it always amazes me how Peterborough keep producing good players. Obviously, they've been a yo-yo club over the course of the last couple of years. They've obviously struggled this season. So a lot of those players are looking for a way out. I think of Mason Clark, who's made a transition up to the Championship from Peterborough. Did well when I saw him playing for Cov last season. And I think Poku's got the talent to do that as well. So, yeah, be interesting to see where he ends up. I think there'll be a long list of people that want him. What I would like to see from Derby is us nick a signing out of the air from like a Middlesbrough, West Brom, or potentially one of those other clubs that are hunting the playoffs. That would be lovely to see. That might come, obviously, when we get a bit more money, a bit more investment, if and when that happens. But yeah, I think we should be in the conversation for sure. And if we can get a player of that caliber, then I think mid-table probably is the least that we'd expect if we've got players like Poku in our team.
Yeah, agreed. Vic Singh in the comments saying he went for a different Poku, Ernest Poku from AZ Alkmaar. I spoke to an AZ channel earlier in the season when we were first linked to, I think we were linked to him in January, trying to bring him in potentially on loan. And he called me words in Dutch that kind of equated to English clown. So I'd be very surprised if we got that one over the line. He's very highly rated at AZ and is breaking into their first team. Played a lot of minutes towards the end of the season, but I do like you thinking Vicky be the sort of player that we'd absolutely need. Adam, my favourite pick of all, the gamble. Go on, who have you gone for?
I've kind of gone against what I believe in, just square pegs in square holes with this one. I've kind of picked a forward who's been used on the wing last season, which I know goes against.
It's not Harness, is it?
It's not. I've gone with Lincoln City's 21-year-old mainly forward. But he has been playing on the right-hand side a fair bit this season, just gone in Jovan Makama, I think is the correct pronunciation there. Last season he played 45 matches, registered 11 goals, 6 assists, which is his second season playing the men's football. I think he played 40 matches 2 seasons ago and only registered a couple of goals, no assists, but he's getting better and better with every season that's gone through. Obviously, based off the highlights, he looks quite powerful and strong. He's mainly a forward. You can tell he's looking to shoot and come inside, and he does look quite good. And I think he's going to be one to watch next season if he doesn't make a move away. But similar to Peterborough United, we know Lincoln City usually cash in on players who are in good form and look to make a transfer profit. He's a product of their academy. I think this is his 3rd season playing regular men's football. He had a loan out to Brackley. like I said, he's more of a striker, but he did register, and that shows when he scored a hat trick against Bristol Rovers last season, which is no mean feat, and he also did that from the right wing. I think mainly he's moved out to the right wing with James Collins, obviously going to Lincoln from us, and I don't think James Collins could play on the right hand side.
Jamie thinks he can.
That's something I wouldn't want to watch personally. But he's my gamble based on the fact that this is the only season where he's really hit those sort of numbers. They are very, very good numbers for a player who's had to move out onto the right-hand side for what I would assume is the second half of the season. And obviously he is mainly a striker, but I think he's one to watch. Only 21 years old, probably his second season getting regular football. If he doesn't get a move this season, I think he's going to be hitting similar, if not better numbers next season. And I think we could strike now and get a really good player in our hands. While he's still young and doesn't seem to have that as much of a hype around him. That's why he's my gamble, because I think, it'd probably be a risk going for a player who's only really had one really good season in men's football. But there's clearly a high ceiling there, and if he can play on the right hand wing, got no problem with him cutting inside and shooting or coming forward for that. But yeah, he's my gamble.
How long's his contract?
Not entirely sure. Looking on FootMob, he's played 3 seasons now regularly around the first team. So I'm not totally sure, if I'm going to be completely honest. I don't want to make a guess.
5 years. Oh god, that might cost us a bit. But no, that's a good point. It's a decent shout. I mean, again, it's the sort of player you want to bring in, isn't it? Young, hungry, just hit some good form, can play multiple positions. What do you reckon, Jamie?
Yeah, if I'm honest, I don't know too much about him. I know that Lincoln obviously is a good place where they've obviously got a lot of talent, and over the course of the last couple of years, they've had some good players kind of come through. Obviously, home of the amazing James Collins as well. So it's obviously a good place to play football. I think it just comes back for me is, can that at that young age, can you make that step up? I do quite like the fact that you've mentioned someone that's versatile, that can play as a striker, that can play wide. But then again, I don't know in years gone by if we've seen wide players be able to do it in forward areas. So yeah, it's an interesting one. I think it need to be the right kind of transfer fee. And what we do have to remember is that we've got quite a lot of business to do. So of course we need to make sure that we're spending the right fees, and it's probably going to be a mix of free transfers and kind of minimal fees in my opinion, unless something drastically changes with the ownership of the club. So yeah, that's just my point there. I'm not going to be as scathing as you were to me, Adam, because it seems like you've done your homework.
How long's his contract, Adam? How long is it?
He signed a 3-year deal in 2024 till 2027. So he probably would command a decent fee. But I've not seen that much hype around him. So I've not seen that much hype around him. So I'm not convinced that he'd cost north of 3 million. But even then, that's quite a lot for us at this point in where we are, unless we're going to spend 30 million again in one summer.
We should do that. That's a good idea, actually, Adam. I think we should try that. Sell a few houses, Clouds, and we'll spend the money on some players. But no, it's definitely an interesting choice. Jamie, if you're going to choose one of the three, who are you choosing?
Oh, it's a good question. Probably Poku. I think that's the one that excites me the most. I don't think it's too realistic. I'd be very surprised if it happens, but yeah, that's the winger that I'd love to see in the club.
I see. I'd like to see Dean Garner. Why don't we just sign both? That's a good idea. Sign both.
I mean, we need both. We need both, don't we?
Need both,
we need a lot. So I think the fact that Dean Garner comes on a free and we pay minimal for Poku unless he is on a free. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, we will. Jamie, looks like you've accidentally unplugged your camera, which is quite impressive work. I don't know how you
that was impressive, and now I'm really zoomed in. Hi.
That is terrifying.
Yeah,
that is really, really scary.
Sorry about that.
That's much better. That's much better. Okay, that takes us on to the one we've surely all been waiting for. It's my picks. Usually quite left field, but obviously usually really good as well. So to kick us off, we've got Jamie. Jamie doesn't look convinced. To kick us off, I've gone for our our realistic pick. And I've gone for a boring championship one, and it's John Swift. A player Derby were kind of linked with in January. So I've maybe broken the rules a little bit, but he's got a great record in the championship, John Swift. I mean, he's a centre mid or attacking midfielder, 20, 21, 22 and goals, 13 assists. I mean, that is a ridiculous return for a midfielder. 7 goals, 10 assists after moving to West Brom. Then hit 9 goals and got an assist. So it's another 10 goal involvements the year after. And then last season, it just didn't quite work out for him. I think he only got 3 goals, 1 assist, didn't really get too involved with the team, but you could tell, they were trying to go in a different direction, and maybe his time was maybe up at West Brom, and they tried to get him out in January, and he didn't leave, ended up sticking around till the end of the season, didn't play a lot of minutes, but he's the sort of player that I'd really like to see in our midfield. Is he the hardest worker on earth? Absolutely not. We're not going to see him doing a Marcus Harness or a Jerry Yates and sprinting around and covering every blade of grass, but he's got absolute quality. And in our midfield, I look at our midfield now, and aside from Kenzo, making a couple of nice runs, playing a couple of nice passes, we don't have a lot of quality in that midfield. In fact, we just don't have any players, but we don't have a lot of quality in that midfield. Tomo, who's obviously still here at the minute, not the best on the ball. You've got Ibu Adams, who is arguably the worst on the ball. We've not got many players that can manipulate the ball in the way that John Swift can. So for me, he'd be my realistic pick. What are your thoughts? Were you thinking, Jamie?
Yeah, no, good pick, really good pick. And I think if you look at what we had last season, there's limited championship experience. Okay, yeah, you can say Tomo had a couple of seasons. But yeah, obviously it was Adam's first year really playing championship football, and Harrison Armstrong obviously came in and did fantastically, but he wasn't experienced. So someone that knows the level, and like you say there, someone that's got the ability to pick a pass, to unlock a defence, or just to get on the ball and kind of give us a breather when we need a moment. And if you've got that kind of player alongside an Ibu Adams, I think it just complements your midfield. So yeah, good shot.
Adam?
Yeah, I was a massive fan of him when he was at Reading. I think he looked really good there, and I think he was at that sign to West Brom at the point when they signed Alex Mowat as well to their midfield. So when they just started doing what we did and tried to sign as many really good championship players in the hope that it would take them up to the Premier League. But yeah, I think he definitely fit the bill of players who were good a couple of years ago in Derby, trying to cling on to that, because I think we've done that a couple of times in the last few seasons. But yeah, I think he's got something to offer at this level. Like you said, experienced, and his goal and assist output can be really, really high if he's in that right team and getting that regular football. So yeah, definitely wouldn't be one that I'm opposed to. Is he leaving on a free this window?
Yeah, I was going to say he's available on a free, 29 years old, which I forgot to say at the start. But yeah, no, I agree. I think it's much needed championship experience as well, isn't it? I mean, we've got a lot of players in this team that have not played a huge amount of championship minutes. So, when you look across the team, you mentioned Ibu Adams' first season really at this level. There's a lot of them that were like that. Kane Wilson obviously being the same, and a lot of the lads that came in from abroad, all the Norwegians, all the Sweden people, etc. Yeah, we've got a lot of players that haven't played a lot of football in this league. So to have a player that can kind of be a little bit of a figurehead was what I was thinking. But on to the next one. So what I didn't say at the start, which I was going to say, is like Jamie, I've looked at profiles because I think you need very specific profiles to fit the team. And the 2 profiles I looked at was number 8 that is quite forward thinking, aka John Swift, someone that will pick up the ball and potentially drive with the ball, create goals, put balls into the box, have shots from range, because I think that's something we really lacked last season. But the other thing I looked at was a holding midfielder, a playmaker, someone who can sit deep and dictate the game, because until Harrison Armstrong came in, Derby didn't have that. You look at a lot of teams in the league. I mean, Sheff Wednesday is the obvious example, right? Pretty terrible team, but they've got Barry Bannon, and he dictates the tempo and he dictates the game, and he's so integral to the way they play. We didn't have that until Armstrong came in, and he sat in that holding role and he played the ball. So for my prime pick, I picked Victoria Pleasant midfielder Lucas Kalvak. Now, he's a holding midfielder or a central midfielder, Czech Republic international. He's been there for 6-7 years. He's a full, like I said, full international, played at a really good level. He's out of contract at the end of the season. He got 5 goals, 12 assists last season for them. Takes a lot of set pieces, can pick a killer pass. Obviously, highlights only tell you so much, but he's got a great shot on him. He's the sort of player that will sit in that holding midfield position and just be that metronome. He's got a great range of pass. And he'll do what Harrison Armstrong will do. He's strong, he's big, he'll control that midfield, and he'll give us something that I think we're missing and give us a little bit more control. Wages obviously aren't fantastic in the Czech league as well, so I don't think that would be a huge problem, like we saw with Zetterstrom, etc. You know, bringing players in from top teams in smaller foreign leagues, they're usually not as well paid, and we can match them quite well. So he's my pick. He's had a good few years playing alongside Mate Vidra as well, which is always good fun, I'm sure. Jamie, what do you reckon?
I don't know much about him, but I'll have to check him out.
Yeah, that's the sort of player I love, mate. That's the best kind of footballer. Adam, based on the 2 minutes I've just described there, what are you thinking?
It's interesting that he's leaving on a free. I think that maybe indicates that he's looking for football in a different league or higher up. Or maybe it is to do with wages or something, who knows. But I find that interesting. And clearly that would probably fit the bill of probably a bit of our recruitment strategy for this next season. Quinn was probably aiming for that safe mid-table finish. So he sounds like clearly a player who's very technically gifted. And he's a bit of a playmaker as well, which would always be welcome in the team. And I think I find it really interesting that he's on a free with him being an international player. So I think he's definitely one that's going to have a few suitors this summer by the sounds of it.
Yeah, absolutely. That was what was going through my mind, is that, you know, players from those sort of leagues, they don't command a massive wage bill. And if you can find players of that sort of quality, either on a free or on the cheap, I don't see why we shouldn't. And being a full international, I couldn't put him in the gamble. You can't put a full international as a gamble. That's that would be rogue. And that leads us on to my final pick, the gamble. Now, I did a lot of searching for this. I did put a lot of filters in. Players that win the ball back quite well, players that play out from the back, players that can put balls into the box, potentially players that can take set pieces too. Obviously, that's something Derby have lost with Marcus Harness's departure. We've lost our proper set piece taker. And that led me to the second division in Spain, which led me to the man on the thumbnail who Jamie was looking at and asking who on earth he was. I wouldn't have known until about 12 o'clock yesterday. And it takes us to Alex Sala. He's a holding midfielder. He plays for Cordoba. He's 24 years old. He's a product of La Masia in Barcelona. Came through their academy, went out on loan a few times, ended up at Girona, went out on loan a few times. Had never really played above the third tier in Spain until last season. He joined Cordoba in the third tier, played a starring role as they got promoted up to La Liga 2. And then this season, he's hit 5 goals, 5 assists in the Liga 2. His chances created is in the top 10 in the league. He takes a lot of set pieces. I've watched the highlights. He scores some really good goals. He's got a great right foot. And he just manages to pick the ball out and put the ball in the bottom left corner, bottom right corner. But as well, the thing that impressed me most is when they play out from the back. Now, if you're a Spanish player, you clearly can be better than an English player at playing out from the back. It's just natural, isn't it? It's in their blood, in their bones. But watching him play out from the back, he's so composed, so calm. And it just brings that sort of relaxed feel that we got watching Harrison Armstrong last season. You know, the ball would come into his feet. You know he's not going to lose it. You know he'll open his body up. You know he'll pick a pass. And it's just something a little bit different. And that's why I picked as my gamble. He came up with them last season. He's only got a year left on his contract. He's valued at about 50,000. So for me, that's the perfect gamble. You know, probably won't cost more than 100K. He's never really played at a massive level, but at the same time, he's come through Barcelona's academy. He's very good on the ball. He's very composed and he's very young. So I think he'd be the perfect midfielder to plonk with a couple of experienced defenders behind him, a couple of experienced midfielders, and let him dictate the game. Go on, Jamie. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I'm behind it. I can't say I know too much about him, obviously, but I think what you said there is exactly what we need. And I think what we keep coming back to is that there's a Harrison Armstrong hole left in this side, and we need to replace that. So if he was able to do it at his tender age, then, you know, we should be looking potentially at someone that's got youth on their side as well. Sounds like he had a good education in terms of football. And I think going back, you know, my favourite player ever for Derby County is a Spanish player, and I loved Omar Mascarell as well. So Spanish midfielders to me have been quite kind. So yeah, why not?
Yeah, that's it. And I tell you what, if you want a bit of an Idiakas feel, if you go and watch his goal against Osasuna, outside of the foot, edge of the box, into the top corner, I mean, that's got Idiakas written all over it. And brilliant technique. I don't think Idiakas hit ready with the outside of his boot, but the technique behind it was beautiful. Adam, what are you thinking?
Yeah, it sounds interesting. Like Jamie mentioned, he's got the football education that you want to look for, product of Barcelona's academy. And yeah, that sounds good. Like you mentioned, the playing out from the back. Be interesting to see whether, if he had the physicality to match the championship. But like we said, it technically, I think the standard of technical players in the championship's got a lot higher. I don't think it mainly relies on that sort of physical game anymore that I think you might have seen 10 years ago, maybe. It's interesting that you mentioned he played for Girona, a club who's obviously gotten a decent rise in Spanish football into the top flight, and Cordova were a club in the top flight
Second
not that many
division.
years ago.
Oh yeah, not too long ago. Yeah,
not too long ago. So clearly a club that will have ambitions to get back, and if he's been signed by them, then he's probably in their plans to play in that top flight again. So like you mentioned, he sounds a very good technically gifted midfielder, and it wouldn't surprise me if Derby went into the European market again with this summer coming up. I think where we've gone and found some real gems for probably a lower transfer fee than what we would have paid in England. So yeah, he definitely sounds an interesting midfielder, and interesting to see where he goes if he does go somewhere this summer.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it's sort of sign I love. Maybe like you, Adam, I've played too much Football Manager in my time, but when you see a player that fits the right profile and he's got a bit about him and he's on the cheap, I can't stay away. You've got to bring him in and stockpile as many as possible. So yeah, I think if we signed all the players you mentioned, I think we'd probably win the league. I think it'd be a great season. We've got all the Japanese fans coming over, like has happened at other clubs. We've got every Japanese sport TV channel watching every Derby game. I'm sure they'll be at Stevenage away in the EFL Cup or something like that to watch their main man. But yeah, we've had some good ones, and I just want to give a quick mention. I didn't know how much time we'd have, but Callum has done a few picks at left back as well. He's not here because he's got no voice, which is usually quite important for these sort of episodes. But he's picked at left back. His gamble is Ben Jackson, who's at Barrow. He joined Barrow from Huddersfield last season. Got 10 assists for Barrow as well, and creates a lot of chances, which is interesting. He's mentioned Ballymumba from Plymouth as well. Only 23, can play left back, left wing. He's not a bad player, to be honest. I remember watching him and I thought he was good. He's on a free as well. I was about to say, I think he's on a free. And then he's picked his prime pick, Jack Curry at Oxford, but he was on loan at Leyton Orient. I'm not sure how a Leyton Orient player's made it as his prime pick, but he's bought by Oxford at the start of last season and has a really good rating in League One. So, it's another good shout. But are there any other honourable mentions you guys have got? I've got a few in midfield. Jacob Sorensen, who's leaving Norwich on a free. Massimo Luongo, obviously leaving Ipswich on a free. Freddie Potts, who was on loan at Hull last season, could get on loan from West Ham. He looks a good young player. And then obviously Harrison Armstrong himself, if he has the worst pre-season of all time, it'd be nice to bring him through the door. Jamie, Adam, you got any more?
I had a couple for strikers, mainly loan options. I quite like the Broadhead rumour that was circulating on X a couple of days ago. I also quite like Jebison as well as a bit of a gamble. In my opinion,
awful, mate.
No, I think he could do it. I saw him a couple of times for Bournemouth when he got that opportunity, and I think he's a good enough player in the right team. And this is rogue. And I wouldn't say I want to see him start every week, but I'd take Nahki Wells for a season as well. 35. I know
it'd make you feel young.
Yeah, exactly that. I'm younger than a Derby player. But no, I just think he's a good championship striker. He's been linked with League One teams, and I think that's probably where he'll go. But I'd have him off the bench. as an option. And if that allows the likes of Dejon Brown to go and get some first team football somewhere else, then yeah, that's the kind of player that I'd like to see kind of coming off a bench, or potentially pushing the likes of Salverson and anybody else that comes in for a start. But yeah, they're my rogue shouts or extracurricular shouts.
Adam, you got any?
Just off the top of my head, I think Joe Geldart, who was on loan at Hull, I believe, from Leeds at the back end of last season, I think would be a decent backup option. A player who's probably hungry for first team football, has shown flashes of quality. I think he looked okay against us. Probably didn't have the players around him in that game at the back end of last season. I think one I mentioned in the January last season was Ross Stewart at Southampton. Obviously, with them coming down, he's probably going to be in the mix a lot more.
Yeah.
But obviously, he had a great season for Sunderland in League One. Got the move to Southampton. I think injuries, and he's mainly just been kept out of the team, has halted his development. But I think a player who, I think you've got a 20-25 goal season striker in the Championship, but it's whether he stays fit. And I think if he's not Southampton's first choice, I definitely could see him being loaned out. Or maybe even potentially signed by someone in the division. I think he'd be an underrated player, but that's just off the top of my head.
Yeah, it's another good shout. We've got Adam Lilly says Charlie Kellman, who hit 27 goals for Leyton Orient last season, played 61 games. 61.
Wow,
that is absolutely insane. Oh, Adam's not convinced.
I'm not convinced. The season before he struggled, and I know he's. I think that's his best season he's had at Leyton Orient, and that's one season.
Yeah, he's also QPR, isn't he? He's on loan from QPR.
Yeah, he was on loan from QPR, and they're probably going to bring him through. And when you watch his goals, I mean, I'm only just going off the highlights that I've seen. I don't know. I don't know. I'm not going to.
There we go. Adam's put him on fraud watch. So if you've got any more shouts that we haven't covered, or you want to tell us how bad our shouts are, or how good they are, or you've watched that Alex Salah outside foot goal against Osasuna, let us know in the comments what you think. It'd be really good to hear some of your shouts as well. So thank you very much for joining us. We hope you've enjoyed. We hope you've learned a bit. We hope Derby are listening to this as well. John Eustace has listened to 47 minutes of this and is hastily writing down a new shopping list, crossing off some names. James Collins crossed that one off. Connor Salmon crossed that one off. And he's going to go for some of the options that we've picked instead. If you did enjoy, please do leave a like. Please do subscribe. And get involved on social media. Let us know your thoughts, all of that sort of stuff. Jamie's pointing in every direction. I don't really know what he's doing. But I appreciate the moral support anyway. So thank you. It is goodbye from me. Let's hope we sign someone soon.
It's goodbye from me.
It's goodbye from me.
Right, off to watch Soccer Aid. Let's do a little bit of scouting. Let's see if we can bring in. That Wayne Rooney looks a decent player, doesn't he? Wonder if we could bring him in. Thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you very soon. Bye.